Hello, today we are going to make an apron. I could write a whole love letter to aprons. I feel like they represent so much. They represent wanting to get ready to get to work. You put on your apron and then you get to doing stuff knowing that you're protected and able to be as messy as you need or want to be. I love that they can be so practical with a lot of pockets so you can put all your tools while you're doing your worky things, and I love that. And I love that paradoxically they can also be some of the frilliest, laciest things with ruffles and made out of the thinnest of linens and silks and just unapologetically pretty. And I love that. I love that an apron can be both. And that is fantastic. You may have noticed that there's an apron somewhere in the corner of my videos here, because I've always loved it as a symbol of getting ready to craft something. We're doing an apron because I recently saw, while perusing the internet, I happened across an eBay listing for what was clearly like doll clothes, but they looked really cute, so I clicked on it, and turns out it was specifically a Barbie outfit. It was a little cute dress with an apron over it and some stuff inside the apron pockets, and it was part of something called the Q series, or it was a Q dress, and I was like, what is this? I'm familiar with like school teacher Barbie or Dr. Barbie or any other of the multitudes within the Barbie universe, but I was wondering if there's like an A, B, C, D Barbie? Like, is this a letter series? What is this? No, it's not the Q Barbie, it's Barbecue. Barbecue. It is the barbecue Barbie for cooking. Learning about that just tickled me, and there is something about the outfit that I really adore. Something I think in the proportions is just different enough from how you might typically make an apron for a person that I think it appeals to me. And I love the little tools peeking out of the pockets and how they're ever so slightly oversized. While it would be super cute to make an apron and have cooking utensils in there, what if I went with, instead of a Q Barbie, a Morgan Barbie? What would a Morgan Barbie have in her apron? And I figure, of course, I've got to go in the sewing direction. So I'm going to put in this little set of apron pockets of mine, little representations of, to me, some of the most classic sewing supply symbols. Our first tool is the very classic yellow tape measure. I have a ton of yellow tape measures, but I also have a ton of white ones, and so I wasn't 100% sure. I actually asked via my Instagram what folks thought was the most kind of iconically sewing tape measure color, and yellow won by a landslide. So yellow tape measure it is. I did the same thing for scissors because I've got a ton of different colored scissors, like plain metal silver ones or metal with kind of like a rubber handle that are in black. And I've also got the winner, the orange handle scissors. These, not by as much of a landslide, but still overwhelming majority said that the orange handled scissors are what they iconically think of as like sewing scissors. And to complete our very sunny color palette so far, we have the lovely, the wonderful, the sewing pincushion tomato with little strawberry, which I always thought was funny because I'm like, if it's a tomato, why would it have a strawberry? It doesn't matter. I love that it's such a funny little bit of cuteness that seems to be just a classic fun part of sewing toolkit is a little tomato for holding all your pins. And I love that this gives me a very, very warm, yellow, orange, red, like almost coming into summery kind of color palette. I think that's very fun. Now that I have my tool situation figured out, next up we need something to put them in. I need to do the actual apron part of this. The fabric that I've chosen for my apron is this relatively heavy duty linen that I feel like I'm hoping that because things on a small scale, like when you do things like a Barbie outfit or a doll outfit, the fabrics read as so much more stiff than they would if they were those same fabrics as a full garment. I'm hoping that by using this relatively heavy linen, it'll nicely have that look of slightly too stiff fabric, but it'll also legitimately be a good material for an apron. I feel like linen is always nice and hard wearing for apron type purposes. Anywho, it has been sitting in a pile in my fabric closet over there for who knows how long. So I need to get it tidied up a little bit. And after I have it tidied up, I'll cut off what I need and put it through the wash to like pre-shrink it and then iron it again. But that's okay. We're gonna get this very neat and tidy. I'm really excited about this apron project because I feel like it's very translatable, personalizationable. My command of the English language is fantastic. It's something that you could very easily make your own by, if you're a doctor and you want to have a cute, doctor themed apron, I feel like you could make it and put like a stethoscope design and a pen and maybe some gloves or something. If you're a school teacher, you might have, pens or pencils, maybe dry erase board markers, chalk, crayons, I suppose, depending on what age of grade you're teaching, and maybe an apple if you wanted to have something kind of very iconically teacher related. If you were June of June's Journey, who are the very kind sponsors of today's video, you might have something more like a magnifying glass, maybe some handcuffs. June's Journey is a hidden object mystery game where you hunt for clues in these really beautifully illustrated scenes, as well as for things like magnifying glasses, handcuffs. You can check it out by using my QR code in the corner there, or by using the link down in the description. It's free to download. It's available on iOS or Android or even PC via Facebook Games. The memorization aspect of the game is, I think, one of the most satisfying parts, because when you first start a new scene, you don't know where anything is, so you're like trying to find it, and by the time you're finishing a scene, I'm just like confidently plucking away because I know exactly where everything is, and that is so satisfying. And you have this really lovely island where you can decorate it to your heart's content. And this month they have the cutest theme. It's very garden, farm, countryside sort of aesthetic, and I love the more naturey type themes. And this one in particular has this lovely little lady with a scythe and an apron. Clearly good taste. I'm looking forward to getting all the pieces for this particular theme this month, but you should check it out using that QR code or the link. And in the meantime, I will finish ironing this. Part of me is very tempted to only cut off the amount that I need, because I only need like, I don't know, like 4 feet, maybe 5 feet of length. That should be more than enough for the apron, and then just toss this back in the closet. But I have it out. I'm all set up for getting it ironed and tidied up. I'm obviously not trying to get it mirror finish smooth here, but I do want to get it at least tidy, neat. So I am folding it in half and getting it ironed up so that I can then do the nice folding situation and put it in the closet prettily rather than letting it just be a crumpled up mess like it currently is on the floor. I have some linen here that is now perfectly ready to become an apron, and the pattern itself isn't terribly complex. One thing that I think is kind of neat about the apron top is that it's not just a rectangle. It actually has a slight trapezoidal, I think, shape, where it's a little bit narrower at the bottom and gets a little bit wider up at the top before the straps come up. And it looks like it's just big enough that it covers most of the front, but you can still see just a tiny hint of the dress at the side, which I think is cute. You get that little hint of color at the side. So I'm gonna try and put just draft up a really quick piece of paper and trim it down until it looks like it's about the right size proportionately. One change I already know I'm gonna make is I don't love halter tops. It's not my jam. I'm gonna change that halter style top to a crisscross back strap situation. I think that is gonna make me a little bit happier. But I'm really looking forward to trying to keep as much of the proportions as I can. So once I do have that top situation figured out, I'm gonna go ahead and take that and use that to proportionately make the length and width. I'm gonna see how many lengths of the top is the skirt and how many widths of the top is the skirt. And I feel like that'll get me pretty good proportions. It was looking pretty good on here, maybe a little small, and so I wanted to see it on me just to double check. I feel as though on our Barbie model, there's definitely a little bit less dress visible on the sides here, but not too much less. And I feel like if I go any wider with this panel, pretty quickly I'm gonna end up with a lot of buckling. Unless I start adding darts into the design, if I want it to stay one flat piece, I really can't go too much bigger than this. Otherwise I'm gonna have like little wings sticking out the side here, or wings here. Now on Barbie it definitely gapes, so I expected that it would gape a little bit on me, but not quite as bad since I changed the halter neck design to a cross back version. Yeah, I think this will do. Now that I have the front piece pretty much settled out, I think I'm happy with this, and I know the basic proportions that the rest of the apron needs to be, although I do need to make sure that I do a little bit of a beginning at the front here so that I have enough to roll it back and do a very generous hem. But then we'll count out our 3 and then another generous hem at the other side, and we have our length. We can go ahead and cut this straight up from here. But now for our height, we can't just simply go bloop, bloop, and call it good. The problem with just doing that is that there's kind of a pocket fold situation. All right, I think I have fiddled about to my heart's content, and I think I've settled on something that seems to be proportionately pretty dang close to the pictures of the 1960s barbecue skirt apron. Next, what I'm gonna do is, I think I'm going to iron it in the position with the pocket fold, so that I'm gonna do like a really good iron crease situation so that I have that reference like molded into the fabric. I have my apron folds all ironed in nicely, including folding it into thirds and marking that via ironing, because that's where the pocket divisions are gonna go, like that's where the stitching is gonna go to differentiate our 3 pockets. But for right now, I'm gonna set this aside and actually make that top piece that we've been using as a reference point this whole time. Now, the funny trick about this is I saw some pictures of the back of the apron. This is such a funny, neat little thing. What they've done is, instead of using 2 of these pieces, right? Like cut this out, cut another one out, slap them together and turn them inside out. What they did was made it so that this is the front and then folded this back like so. Obviously I have too much fabric, but pretend with me here for a second. And then made it so that there was a seam right in the center back, and that way all of these side areas are super easy to do a line of stitching, and it's very, very thin. It's not building up a lot of thickness that's really tricky to sew on tiny things. And I don't need that when sewing on the full-size scale that I'm doing. But it's such a fun, cute little idea that I'm gonna go ahead and give it a try. Why not? I'll fold back my edges. I will get this cut, and then I should have a top piece in a second here. Update. So while that did work, there is the decided downside of, I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but I can see the shadow of where that seam is in the middle whenever I'm looking in the mirror, and I don't love that. It's not the worst, it's just not my favorite. So I think what I'm gonna do, rather than completely scrap this and start over, like I have the material, but I'm gonna do one last kind of effort to save it, and I'm gonna take a bit more of this fabric and kind of make a little insert to go inside, and I'm hoping that that additional layer of fabric in front of it will help solve the issue and make it so that it's not quite as noticeably seamed in the middle there. To finish off the top, I do need to make some straps to hold it up. So I'm just gonna take this piece of fabric. It's about a little over 6 inches wide, and once I fold it up, that'll get me kind of a generous inch of a strap. I feel like proportionately that seems to look about right. So like this, and then like this. And this is what I'm going to use as my strap, so I'm just going to iron all the way around, and then for this edge I'll either hand stitch it closed if I'm feeling fancy, that'll definitely be the cleanest, or I could top stitch just super closely. I do not at all feel like sewing this and then trying to flip a big tube. Nope. Not doing it. So I'm gonna iron it first and then stitch it closed somehow. I ended up going with hand stitching, although I haven't actually done the whole thing yet. But I got at least the ends done so that we can tuck them inside of here. So I'm gonna go between my layers that I already stitched and just bloop them up here. And I'm gonna try as much as I can to make sure I match up the angle of the strap with the angle of the top. So we're gonna just pop that on in, and then once I've got these in place, I am gonna just stitch right across the top here. All right, time to flip this right side out and get a look at it, and I think that we are on the right track. The top here will get smoothed out with a bit of ironing, and because I have this kind of loose extra piece in the middle, I think next, after I get everything ironed smooth and nice, I'm gonna do a line of stitching all the way around, trying to mimic the Barbie apron. And here we have the top mostly done. It might look a little bit proportionately long, and it is. It's because I did make it just a little bit longer than the template piece here, because I wasn't sure how much I wanted it to overlap with the belt piece that's eventually going to go here, and it's better to have the wiggle room and cut it off later than to not have it. So, but this is done-ish. I still need to do some more hand sewing on the straps, but I'll do that tonight. For right now though, we're going to set this aside and have some fun with this setup. So what the deal here is, the plan that I have in mind is I want to do my scissors in the pocket, but obviously the scissors are small enough in real life that they won't show inside the pocket. So to do the oversized kind of look that I'm aiming for and make it so that they're even visible in the pocket at all, we are going to draw up a extra big version of the scissors, almost double in size is what we're going to end up needing here. Then I'll make a little mark where I feel like it needs to be at least that long to make sense, and then we can go ahead and take this away, start drawing our scissors. I have this handy dandy little app on my phone that lets me see a picture of something like a pair of scissors, and then I can kind of trace it out by watching from up above here. This is the DaVinci Eye app, I think, if I'm remembering that. I will definitely include a link below. But this way I can at least roughly trace out the scissors to the size that I need them to be, with a little bit more accuracy than if I tried to do this purely by my own eyeball. So that is done, and now we can cut it out, not with the orange scissors because those are for fabric, but with our handy dandy trusty paper scissors. Alrighty, one big pair of paper scissors. Looks a little bit like bunny ears, but I think that once the centers are cut out and it's in its final fabric form and everything, it'll hopefully read a little bit better as what it's supposed to. Now, the downside with wanting to go with the like iconic orange color here is that I don't have any orange. I don't have anything even remotely close to this color in my stash. So this is gonna require a trip to the store. Now that we have our comically oversized scissors and we're waiting on fabric, next up I think I'm gonna look at patterning my tomato. I think I have decided on the smaller of the tomato pincushions. I don't know why, in my head I felt like the big one was gonna be the way to go, but I think that I just like that this one is more proportionately matching with the other guys I've got here, so little tomato it is. I don't know why it's sitting up at the top of the pocket, but we'll ignore that part. We'll just let it be cute and peeking out of the pocket. And I'm pretty happy with my measuring tape situation, trying to get it looking as if it was being stored in a roll, in a spiral, and you let it out and it kind of tends to spiral down. The other thing about the measuring tape is I needed fabric for a few of these because I didn't have the right color, so I got this cute little quilting set thing, and it has red and orange and yellow, so this could theoretically cover me for all three of these. But I also found this yellow like quilt border tape stuff that I think the idea of it being kind of this slightly shiny satin really appeals to me. I did a little bit of a testing to try and make it look like a measuring tape, which had varying levels of success. I have these fabric markers that just immediately bled like crazy. Fabric markers, not the way to go. I also tried a Sharpie just because why not? Might as well. Still full of bleeding. But I also have fabric paint, and I feel like that it's harder to write really clean numbers, but it still looks so much better than the markers. It's worth it to have to be like super careful. I thought about doing embroidery, but I think I like the more graphic feel of the paint. It's a very bold, even though it's fabric paint and should be good to go. I feel like just in case, I think I'm gonna let this sample dry for 24 hours and then pop this into the wash just to verify that it's as stable as it's supposed to be. So this is the widest measuring tape I have, and it is not quite matching up for doubling up with this tape, right? So if everything else is about twice the width or twice the length that it is in real life, then this is just a little too big. I have this excess here. So what I'm gonna do is cut it down with my rotary cutter and my ruler here. And then because this is polyester, I can go ahead and move it up to a flame and just ever so slightly melt that edge so that it's not gonna fray on me. I might have gotten a little bit distracted from painting on those numbers. I decided to try and make the little metal tab thing at the end of the tape. Is it like an aglet or a ferrule or something? Doesn't matter. The little metal thing at the end of the measuring tape. And I still have a little bit of tin left over from my lantern making adventures last summer. So I decided to take a little bit of that and cut it vaguely to the same shape as the simple blue ferrule here. And then I have tons and tons and tons of grommets. So I was able to pop a little hole into it and make a hole into the ribbon itself. Although I will admit the punch did not want to mess with this at all. I probably doesn't help that I went through the metal first and then tried to go through, doesn't matter. Instead, it's much easier if you take the ribbon and fold it into quarters and then nip off the little edge there. You get a little diamond shaped hole that worked really nicely for slipping it into the grommet in between the metal bits. And now I would say I have a pretty dang realistic measuring tape end that I think is going to be super cute, since I know that I want this to be hanging outside of the apron. I feel like a little touch of realism is very fun. Now, one thing that I noticed about the paint whenever I was doing my initial kind of experimental markings here is that I definitely can't add any water. So if I do any like rinsing out of the brush or something, it has to be really, really dry. And the paint that goes on here has to be like just paint, because otherwise it'll spread kind of the same way that the markers do. Like it'll bleed into the fibers, just no good. So other than that though, it's pretty straightforward. However, I did try not to fuss too much about whether or not it was perfect. I wanted it to be relatively neat and tidy and legible and read as the thing it's supposed to read as. And as long as I accomplish that, I'm gonna call it good enough. But once I'm done with all of those paint marks, I think I'm gonna let this sit overnight and dry completely before we see about putting it onto the apron. The tape is done and dry enough to handle at least, and I think they look pretty dang cute. I thought about doing both sides. You know how a lot of measuring tapes will have two different types of measurements on each side, but nah, we're gonna not get too ambitious and just stick with one side for now. Next up though, we are going to tackle the tomato, the little one. And I did actually already do the little hanging strawberry because I wanted to try out the technique and see if I liked what I was thinking. Now I did this one a little bit more poofed out and stuffed. I did a base layer using this really, really heavy like reinforcement make fabric stronger, thicker, fusible interfacing. There we go. My goodness, this very heavy doozy fusible interfacing. It was the first kind of like structural layer. I'm gonna do the same thing for the tomato part. And then for this one, I did a layer of the red wool fabric on top and on bottom, and then stuffed it with some wool scraps. I don't have any of the like fluffy, fuzzy cotton like batting that you might stuff something with, but I have a tiny bit of wool batting of the sheet variety left. So my plan is one layer of the heavy duty fusible interfacing, then one layer of the cotton batting type stuff over top of that, and then one layer of my red wool fabric to be the correct color over top of that. And then I think I'm gonna leave the back blank and just stitch it directly onto the apron. Whereas the strawberry, I did the wool on both sides because I think I want it to just hang there and like have the ability to kind of flip back and forth, so you want both sides to look nice. Something that I found very helpful on the strawberry, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the tomato part, is just doing a really loose basting stitch all the way around and then using that to kind of cinch in around the stiff form. That's one very big benefit of using this, is that it gives me something to pull that string around and make a really nice structured item. Very handy. Transferring the paper pattern with the little star tomato leafy bit on top was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I just traced it out with pressure, and that worked pretty well on the kind of canvas fabric that I'm using for my leaves. And then to adhere this, I'm just gonna plop on a little bit of liquid stitch, which I don't often have the kind of project where this would make sense to use, but in this particular case, I think it totally will. So let's spread this all about. I'm trying to make sure I don't get too close to the edges. Pop that on down about there. And I'm also gonna do some stitches, kind of like how I did on the other little leafy guy here. You can just barely see that I kind of did a bunch of little edge stitches to really secure it down. I did leave the edge raw, so I know that over time this is gonna fray out, but so it does on the original tomato, so yeah, it'll just be authentic. I have one very big tomato. I'll have to figure out what I'm gonna do to have some like big pins to match, but at least for right now, we've got a cute tomato with attached strawberry situation. We've got a lovely ribbony measuring tape. Last but not least is time for the scissors, which, you know, the nice thing about the tomato is it's round. It's not a circle, but it's pretty close. This was pretty easy. This is a straight line, also pretty easy. This is a lot more shapes. I have wrapped the first piece of my scissor handle situation. You can see that I very cleanly wrapped one side, and then the underside is where you can see all the stitching and the wrapping and stuff. So for this one, it's kind of funny. I'm like trying slightly different techniques for each of these, and I've been enjoying that. But so my game plan here is to do this same thing on this one. You can see that it matches up with this, but I'll put it so that the stitching goes towards the front, and that way the two messy sides will sandwich together like this, and it'll be super neat and tidy and lovely. And I also feel like because this is such a like long skinny object, it wants to be crazy floppy, so I'm hoping that by stitching 2 layers of this stuff together, it'll give it just a little bit more stability than, whereas the tomato, because it's just like one round piece, there's not as much bending to worry about. And then I did find some silvery-ish gray fabric. I feel like it reads as silvery when, especially when light's reflecting on it. Like, that's not bad. So, and what's fun about that is I made the corresponding scissor blade. I made it a little bit bigger than the other one, so that way you get that that layered effect that scissors have when 2 blades go together. Hopefully you get what I mean, right? Like there's the underside blade peeking out. So that's what I'm trying to go for here. Like just a hint of it. It's not necessary because the scissor part is probably going to be almost entirely in the pocket, but whatever, it's fine. If I have to do 2 layers anyway to help build up strength, I might as well like make it add to the aesthetics. I now have a lovely giant pair of very silly prop scissors. I did end up adding, in addition to the stitching and the double layers of the fusible interfacing, I also added a bone into here. That way, especially where the blade meets the handle, I felt like was really floppy. So I added one long bone all the way from here to here, and then I added a short one kind of from here to here. Can I feel it? Yeah, there it is. So from here to here is another one, so that the connection point is just a little bit stronger. Obviously it's still floppy, but I feel like that gives it just a little bit more resilience and a little bit more bounce. So instead of just bending and then being sad, you know, it can kind of go back into position, sorta. Anyways, scissors are done. I feel like they are looking very cute. I feel like I've done something very silly here where I've refused apparently to commit to either fully making a proper prop like 3D style, nor have I just done a completely flat applique, right? Like kind of like the poodle on a poodle skirt. That very flat, maybe a bit of embellishment, but still very flat. This is flat, but this is, I feel like I've gone a step too far. That's okay though. I feel like the fun of what I've done though is that I don't actually have to commit to placement or even pocket. I can switch these around all I want, and then I can use just like tacking stitches to temporarily hold them in place if I want them to sit or be a certain sort of way. Also, the pincushion, I added some little decorative pins. I had some hat pins that are on the shorter-ish side. I also put a tapestry needle in there. So I think the next step that I actually want to tackle is the apron itself. Like, it's already divided up into thirds, nicely ironed with the pockets in place and everything. I just have to actually stitch it. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to take my edges here, fold them twice, and then run the sewing machine along that. Another thing I need to sort out here is what I'm doing with the ribbon, because I feel like the scissors, there's only so many options. I guess I could put it handle first and just have the blade sticking out, but otherwise it's really kind of got just one option. I can choose how far I want it sticking out. That's it. Same thing with the pincushion. That's gonna go tucked in a little bit, and I can put the strawberry, I can like tie it up here. That could be really cute, like floating in space. Or I can tack it down so that it's like at the top of where the pocket starts. Cool. Not a lot of options. The ribbon, or rather the measuring tape. Infinite options. I think I will probably sit here and kind of fiddle with this until I like the look of how pieces are tucked in or tucked out of the apron. To start our waistband, first I have a piece here that is twice the width of our trapezoid plus some seam allowance room, and that is going to go up here, and I need to now pleat this section up to match the width of this, again kind of minus the seam allowance, so a little bit smaller than that. So now for my top, which is a little bit longer than the actual template piece, this is the section here that's going to get tucked into the waistband, which I have ironed away nicely here. This is the middle point, and that allows me to line this up about like so. That looks pretty centered to me. So let's toss a few pins in. And then for our apron skirt, which this piece that I sewed on earlier is the underside, it's the lining of the waistband. This is the top of the waistband, and I'll fold down the excess afterward. But this is getting me the front side here. That looks about right. Now that everything's in place, I'm going to take that lining and flip it down out of the way, and then I'm going to top stitch right here where the top connects to the waistband. Then I'm going to also stitch on the waistband to the skirt part, and then we're going to take a look at getting this lining situation all nice and pretty. While I was doing the top stitching on the bottom part, I did make sure to tuck in the ends. That way those are all nice and tidy and ready for when I flip this up. I can just kind of fold the edges down like so. Up here I obviously have way more fabric than I need. There we go, and then I think we can pretty safely cut off that excess 1.5 inches. And then fold it back over the correct way. I feel like my center got a little off-centered there, but oh well, that's okay. And then I'll just fold these down and pin them in place right over where that existing seam line is. I can't decide yet if I'm going to machine top stitch this as well, or I have a feeling I might end up hand sewing just this area here. Like that's not the biggest amount, right? Like I will hand stitch that down to get it extra pretty and tidy, of course in a place where nobody's ever gonna see it. And then we're gonna give this whole thing one big top stitch after we've folded down the edges like so. That way on the right side, once we have those top stitches approximately here and here, it'll look a lot like the Barbie apron. Construction wise, we are pretty much done. The only thing I have left here is to do the straps and where they crisscross in the back, and I think I'm gonna go for a button somewhere around here and a couple buttonholes so that there's a little bit of options there. I don't think I'm gonna need a lot of options, but never hurts to have some. So let's get this tied up, and then this is gonna go over the shoulders and crisscrossed. Alrighty, I think we have about the right placement. My bow is atrocious, but the X in the back I think is looking good, so I'll get the buttons and buttonholes here done. I might trim off some of the excess length here, like this. These are a good at least 2 inches longer than I need, I'm thinking. So We'll see. Maybe, I mean, it never hurts to have the extra length just in case. Like, whatever the case, I will get this sorted out. I will add the scissors and the tomato to my remaining pockets here. And then I think it'll be time for a grand reveal. Ma'am. Now that I've done that button and buttonhole situation, I did do 3 buttonholes. That way it kind of has a different arrangement of sizes. Right now it's on the medium, the middle buttonhole. But now that that is done, I am done. I feel very much like a Barbie, specifically barbecue, but Morgan edition Barbie. And I am digging it. I feel very cute. I did end up attaching these in a very temporary way. I just did some safety pins on the back side. That way I can take them out and wash this without potentially completely destroying my little props, but I can enjoy wearing them. And they're nice and securely attached with the safety pins on back, and I think that's very cute. I do like that it's semi-functional. At least the pincushion part is. I can totally put real regular pins in here, and that I think is lovely. I have my oversized pins in here just as a fun decoration. Noelle of Costuming Drama gave me a fantastic idea talking about how a lot of people will put a ribbon or a bit of torn up cloth or something and tie it onto their scissors handle to mark them as sewing scissors. And I think that's really cute. I feel like that'd be a really great way to coordinate with your apron with whatever outfit you're wearing. I already have like red and red in here, so it's, but instead I did a yellow ribbon to match the yellow measuring tape, and I think that's super cute. The measuring tape is much more permanently sewn on. I was really happy with how the washed sample turned out, and I'm pretty certain that this should stand up to being washed no problem. It was just the other two that I was less certain about. Probably be fine, but I think it would get all crumpled up looking instead of like smooth and nice like they currently are. So I think I want them to stay very nice and lovely. I feel very cute. I think I might need more aprons because just one is insufficient. Like this. Look at how cute this is. Alright, I hope you guys had fun watching me make my vaguely doll-sized things, but sized up to real size proportionately, question mark, silliness. And if you haven't already, make sure you check out June's Journey using that link down in the description. I feel like that is also full of very small little cute people that you can decorate, and it's clearly in the same vein. Alright, I will see you guys later.